What's up, guys? My name is Micah.
I'm Diana.
And we have a few things to discuss. Today's a good one. It's a powerful one.
We're going in.
We're talking a lot about you and where it all started and how you overcame a massive challenge.
Yeah, really what I wanted to dive into today was my own personal transformation journey, and just, to share it with people, to be honest about what that time of my life was. And I've anybody's watching the show, you probably heard me alluding to my 50-pound weight loss, and it's been 20 years since I went on that journey and have kept the weight off. But I think it was just, I think it was important for people to understand a little bit more about what that was like for me. And I never want people to think that was like, oh, poof, I just changed my eating and, everything was all peachy keen and happy. And, there's been a lot of struggles and a lot of challenges. And I wanted to share a little bit about where I was at when that journey started too.
Well, take us back a little bit further than that and talk about kind of, maybe your teenage years. I know quite a bit about your upbringing and whatnot, but you were a shy girl.
Yeah.
And you found sports at a young age and how that helped kind of shape you a little bit.
I did. I was actually painfully shy, and I know people that know me now would be like, what? But I was a very, very shy kid. And even going into high school, I was a kid that if you called on me in class, I would nearly have a panic attack answering a question. Like, my heart would start racing, my cheeks would turn bright red, and it wasn't because I didn't know the answer. It was because I struggled with massive insecurities. And I was a smart kid. I was really a good kid, a well-behaved kid, and but just really unsure of myself, insecure in a lot of ways, and just very much fearful of what people thought of me, fearful of people making fun of me, a lot of the insecurities that kids struggle with. And I thankfully played sports. I got involved in sports at a pretty young age. And then in high school, I actually got into strength training and lifting weights when I was 14 years old. And that was actually huge for me. And how that started was, I had a friend who was on the football team, and the football team would get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and they would go to the gym early before school started, and they would lift. And this friend was like, "Hey, do you want to come to the gym in the morning and work out in the mornings?" And I was like, okay, like, sure. Yeah, that sounds fun. And that's when I started lifting weights. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have anybody guiding me, but I felt strong, and it felt good to feel like a part of something. And especially being as shy as I was, it felt good to feel like I was doing something that was strong and that was empowering to me. And so I would go and I would do the leg press machine, and I knew how to do the leg press machine, and I did leg extensions for my quads, which, if you know me now, I've quad development has always been one of my big things, when it came to the fitness world. And I'm pretty sure a lot of that development came because I would just leg press and do leg extensions.
Thank you, 15-year-old self.
Yeah, because that was a couple of the only machines that I actually knew how to use. And then the ab machine.
Yeah.
I would get on the ab machine, the machine crunch, and I would do that a lot, which I actually attribute a lot of my thick muscle development to starting so young.
I got to deviate just a little bit. We're at the Arnold one year, and her abs were kind of in the fitness industry were a thing. And the Saturday of the Arnold Fitness Expo, there's 200,000 people there that love fitness of every sport and everything else. And Arnold Schwarzenegger comes walking in, and he's walking in, and it's kind of just people are separating because he has security and everything else. And there's a whole bunch of really fit people.
Yeah.
Really fit people. And he stops at the booth that Diana's at, and he's like, nice abs.
Nice abs.
And she's like, what? And he's like, nice abs. And it ended up being in publication in Oxygen magazine. And we're freaking out like, oh my gosh, like Arnold just stopped and gave, that affirmation of like, and so again, thank you, 15-year-old self. Now, some of abs is genetic, the structure and stuff, but you put the work in and the time in to
Well, I didn't know that I was putting, and that's funny because I was taking a picture of him as he was walking by. So I literally have a picture of Arnold pointing at me going, nice abs. That was actually a pretty cool, one of the best compliments on abs that I ever had. But yeah, to go back to that was kind of where I started strength training. And so like people now, they're like, oh, like when should we start strength training? I'm like, as soon as possible, because it was foundational for me, not just from a strength of like, it helped me in my sports. I played basketball and, in high school and then in college as well, helped me stronger for there. But it was really about how it was helping me with my mental strength and with my confidence, because it was a really challenging time for me. Like, going through like hormonal transitions that you're going through at that phase of life. It was like I felt so awkward and uncomfortable in my body. And then through high school, and I played basketball. I was not very good at basketball, but I was a very, very hard worker.
Very hard worker.
And I tell people, like, I was actually one of the captains of my basketball team, but it wasn't because, usually that's like the best player. It was not because I was the best player, but it was because I was one of the hardest workers, and I was really good at encouraging my teammates and kind of keeping everybody together. Same thing in college. It was like I was the captain of my women's basketball team in college, not because I was the best player. I was not by a long shot, but I was really, I tried really, really hard.
Every team needs a person like you on it to just keep them glued.
Well, I wanted to be an athlete in some way. And so for me, it was like, because I enjoyed the gym, I enjoyed sports, and I was like, but I wasn't I've never been super coordinated. If you've seen my dance moves, like, I mean, they're pretty good, but
they're one of a kind. I'll tell you that. I've never seen moves quite like that.
Yeah, they're for sure, they're unique. But so all of that factored in. Like I had this desire to do something that was like sports athletic based, and I would go to basketball camp and be like, someday I'm going to be in the WNBA. Yeah, that was not going to happen. But anyways, long story short, like that, I was a really shy kid. The gym and the weights and sports really were something that helped create my identity, so that I could kind of just start getting out of that kind of stuckness that I was in, as far as just the insecurity. And in college, I finally started coming a little bit more out of my shell, and also gained a lot of weight in college. They say the freshman 15. I gained the freshman 30 or 40.
That happens.
So it was a lot. I'd never drank, but I'd never drank alcohol before. And then college, it was like, you're drinking and then you're eating at 3:00 in the morning. Not my best habits. That was for sure part of my years of like running away and just being a little bit rebellious and, just kind of going on my own and seeing what was out there. But to get to my actual transformation story, it was after college. I had moved to Utah actually with a bunch of friends that I went to college with, and that was when I had started working. I really was now interested in fitness, and I was really to a point where I was getting all of the fitness magazines, cutting pictures out, putting them up on my walls, like kind of having these dreams of like, these women looked so strong, and I would like look at them and they looked happy and they looked strong, and I was like, man, I just want to be like that, because I still just had this just massive insecurity, and just I compromised a lot of things in my life because I was so insecure, and I just desperately wanted people to like me, and desperately didn't want people to be offended, or whatever that was. And now I understand that was a lot of my own trauma responses from just things that developed in me based on the things that I went through. But at that time I didn't know. I was just going with the flow and rolling with it. Food became a coping tool for me around that time, because when you have those holes holes in you, those things that you're trying to run around and fill, these empty parts of you. And you're just, you're like, here, will you fill up my cup? There's just these empty parts. And I started filling that with food. And I developed an issue with compulsive overeating. And so what I would do, I'm also trying to get into fitness, right? So I'm trying to get into fitness. So I'm starting to like look at these other women and think, oh, I want to be like that. But the behavior that was happening in reality was that I was struggling mentally. I was struggling emotionally with just what is going on in my life. And I would fill with food. So I would wake up in the morning and I would essentially not eat. I would kind of starve myself for the day. And it wasn't because I wasn't hungry. It was more of a punishment mindset. Like, I'm going to punish myself and not eat. And because I thought that's how to lose weight. Like, I really wanted to lose weight because I'd gained my freshman 30 or whatever. And I would starve all day, and then I would get to the point at night that I was so hungry that I lost control completely, and then I would just start binge eating.
Yeah, lots of food.
And I would eat until I literally was so stuffed.
And you were doing it in private too.
And in private
which matters.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It was a secret behavior. So in front of other people, like if I was eating a meal in front of other people, I would eat something healthy or, healthier, or what I thought was, I didn't actually even understand what healthy eating was at that time. But I would, maybe it was a salad, or maybe it was something that had the appearance of that I thought was healthy, but it was the secret eating. And it started for me really, probably the most, like in my early 20s was when that really started to become a negative behavior. And I would eat myself to the point of like I really couldn't move. Like my stomach was so stuffed and so full that all I could do was go to bed. Like all I could do was go to sleep. So then that explains to you why I would wake up in the morning and I would feel the need to then punish myself for what I did the night before.
It's a bad pattern. It's a bad cycle.
Yeah.
So take us real quick to like, I can imagine you're really struggling with some, almost feeling like a hypocrite too.
Yeah.
In a sense that like you're getting into the fitness space and you have these big dreams and these big goals, yet you're in this cycle of like, kind of what a lot of your clients are doing. So you're talking this specific talk, but not walking it the way that you typically like. Tell me a little bit just about kind of the feeling you had during that time, because that had to have been a really difficult time emotionally. And we know a lot of people struggle with this.
Well, it compounded for me the most. I was in the fitness industry. I got a job for Norwegian Cruise Lines as a fitness director for them. And it was kind of the dream job. I was going to get to go and travel and then also do fitness. And so I was super, super excited about that opportunity. And so when I got on the ship, there's so many wonderful things about the ship, the people that I met, the places that I got to go see. But there was also it was when the emptiness really hit me hard, because even though there was a lot of people just kind of in and out of life, I was away from family. I was away from like friends that
isolated.
I'd been. There was isolation. And that was when the depressive feelings really consumed me a lot. I was drinking a lot even leading into that. And so when I got on the ship, I was drinking a lot. You'd go to the crew bar and we didn't have, like, you still had to pay for your drinks, but it was like 50 cents. It was like $2 for like a 6-pack of beer, or $5 for a bottle of wine. And what else are you going to do on a ship? Well, there's plenty of other things you can do on a ship, but what I chose to do was to go to the bar and to drink. And then there's mass quantities of food. When you're crew, you've got access to everything. And it really pushed the boundaries there. And it was because, again, I was trying to fill that hole. I had this loneliness and this sadness, and I would go into my cabin and again, it was kind of hidden stuff. So I had food in my cabin, and I would eat like around everybody, and then when I would go to my cabin, I would keep eating, and I would sit in the cabin like on my own, and I would just devour whatever. It was crackers, chips, cookies, whatever. And again, it was that same pattern I was going over and over. Get up the next morning. I'm really mad at myself for what I did before. I would starve myself all day and get to the point at night that I'm drinking. And so that pattern continued, and I gained a lot of weight on the ship. And I'm the fitness director.
Yeah.
I'm super active. I'm running the classes every day. I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was wearing fitness clothes every day. So those expand with your body, right? And so I kind of knew that this was happening, but then it was also like my clothes still fit because they were mostly workout clothes, you know? So it was like this thing I kind of recognized was happening, but I didn't really understand how big of a problem it was until there was one day that I stepped on the scale. I had a scale in the gym, and I stepped on it, and it went to at least 175 pounds. And I say at least because when I saw it get there, I jumped off.
Ooh.
I jumped off really quickly.
Yeah.
And that was a number I had never seen in my life. I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I remember almost like feeling that feeling of panic again, of like, what have I done? What am I doing? Like, I felt very out of control, and this weight had come on very quickly. I was on the ship for about a year, and that weight had like probably within a 6-month time frame, I had gained probably another 30 pounds or so on the ship. It scared me, and again, like you said, with feeling like a fraud, I did, because again, I'm the fitness director. I'm talking about fitness and health with people. And I also know what I'm doing in my cabin at night. I know what I'm doing to myself, but then I'm like, oh, I'm the healthy one. And it felt very inauthentic to me. It felt like almost like like I was a split personality to a certain degree. When I finally got off the ship, my little sister Maria, when she saw me for the first time, bless her heart, she would never say anything. She's the most loving, kind, sweetest thing on the face of the earth. But her face, when she saw me for the first time, her jaw kind of dropped. And she didn't even have to say anything. She wasn't trying to shame me, nothing like that. But I saw it on her face of, what has happened? Like, what have you done? And again, it was just like this moment of like, I wanted to change, but I also felt so stuck in this behavior that now had been going on for a couple of years of this really vicious cycle, and not understanding, how do I actually dig into that? And how do I actually change that? I felt so trapped. Like, I felt like it was a bondage for me. I felt like that behavior controlled me, and it was actually terrifying for me because I didn't know how to get out of it. I started making excuses too. I was like, oh, I'm just getting older. I'm becoming a voluptuous woman. This is just what happens. I literally said that stuff. And I knew that it was not true, and it was a lie.
So we're dealing at this point. We're dealing with depression. We're dealing with isolation. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with weight gain. Yeah. With that comes chronic stress. Yeah. Lack of confidence. All those things start coming in, which really, I mean, it hits a lot of the population. We've heard these stories over and over again. Each story unique. So you get off the boat. The sister gives you the look, and you're like, oh man, like, what has happened is what has really happened. Like, what I know has been going on is really happening. And it kind of made you kind of take a look in the mirror, I'm assuming, and take us through that moment, because you're still in the fitness industry and training clients and whatnot. So how do you pivot from that moment that your sister sees you and off the boat now, and now having some support around you and stuff, to now getting into, hey, I'm going to have to go train clients, and the effects of that?
Well, when I got off the ship, I didn't know what I was going to do, like where I was going to go. And my older sister, Linda, was living in Texas, and she was like, hey, come down here and live with me. Her and her husband were going to be starting a family. She's like, I want family here. Like, when she was going to get pregnant and start having what are now my nieces. And so I really didn't have any other plan. And I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Texas. So I kind of, right after the ship, I was in Vermont for just kind of this little transition period of figuring out what to do. And even then, like I was at my dad's for those few months, just trying to figure out life. And I was doing the same behavior there. I was, I would wait till everybody went to bed, and then I would just literally stuff myself with food. So even though I was off the ship, I didn't step on a scale for a long time because I was so scared of what it would say, but I was still continuing that behavior. Got to Texas, I got a job at a gym there, and again, same behavior, repeating itself over and over. I couldn't get out of that behavior. So I think I probably lost a little bit of weight just because I wasn't drinking as much, because I wasn't in a crew bar every single night.
Yeah, the lifestyle wasn't exactly the same. There's a little bit more
same.
activity. So now take us, you get this job, you're a personal trainer in Texas, and then this aha moment. This moment that really changed the trajectory of your life to really where you're at now.
Yeah.
Like, take us deep into that, because it's so powerful. Sometimes all it takes is one word or one sentence or one person or one situation or one action to really make the pivot in your life.
Yeah, so it was actually, I had been working at that gym for a couple of months, and I'd developed some friendships and some relationships with people there in Texas, in San Antonio, and they had us write bios for they had a book of bios of all of us as trainers, and I really was still, you got to remember, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've continued to tell people, oh, someday I'm going to be a fitness model. Or fitness modeling wasn't even really a thing. It was like, I'm going to be a figure competitor. I'm going to be a bodybuilder, because that was kind of what women were doing then. So I've been talking this talk, for years to whoever was in my life. Even when I was on the cruise ship, I was like, yeah, someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to do this. So in my bio at the gym, I had written, someday I want to be a figure competitor. And just put that out there as this thing. And it was July 5th of 2005. And it'll take you July 4th of 2005.
So we're celebrating 20 years.
Yeah, I literally just 20 years now 20 years ago that this happened. But that 4th of July, I had, there was a boy that I was like going to go hang out with, and didn't work out for whatever reason, and kind of a ding dong moment for me, whatever. But I was really not happy. Like, I was kind of depressed and bummed about the situation that had happened on that day. And I was just like not feeling good. And I got a hold of one of my friends, and I was like, will you come out for some beers with me on the 4th of July? And so we went out. It was the Flying Saucer. I don't know if you're Flying Saucer's place with beers.
There's a Flying Saucer in like every city.
And I was like, I was bummed how the day had gone, and I was just depressed, and I was like, I just want to go drink. And and so we had gone for beers, and then after a few beers, it was like, there was a McDonald's right there, and it was like, we're going to go to McDonald's, and I had a caramel sundae at McDonald's.
Wow.
And so the next morning I had to get up and train clients, and I woke up and I was so hungover, and I felt really horrible because of what I'd eaten.
Gut rot.
Yeah. I was bloated, and I walked into my bathroom that morning, as I kind of like had to force myself to get up, because now I got to go into the gym and talk about health and fitness as I'm hungover and bloated from what I just did to myself the night before. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and my face was swollen and puffy, and I didn't recognize myself. And I was like, who is this girl? Like, what are you doing to yourself? And I felt, I felt disgusted with myself, and it really is, that's just what I felt in that moment. I felt ashamed. I felt fraudulent. and also afraid. I felt so afraid. I felt very, very stuck because I was like, how am I going to get out of this? Like, I keep saying that I want this new thing in my life, and I am just so stuck in this. And I was really just kind of thinking about that. I drove to the gym that day. I walked through the door, and there was one of the other trainers. His name is Bill. For some reason, as I'm walking in, he's walking towards me and he says, "Hey, Diana, I was reading your bio and I saw that you said you wanted to do figure competitions." And he said 5 words that completely changed my life, which I'm so grateful to him for. But he said, "What are you waiting for?" And how those words landed with me in that moment, I was like, what am I waiting for? And I was like, I finally didn't have an answer for that question. I finally was so sick of my own excuses, and I was so sick of what I was doing to myself. And I was like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I am so sick of it. I don't care. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what this journey is going to look like, but I am doing it.
We talk about a lot hitting, this sounds to me like it's one of your rock bottoms.
Yeah.
You were at a rock bottom in your life where you feel like a fraud, you're depressed, you're overweight, you feel sick, you have anxiety, the confidence, you don't feel like you are the person God created you to be. And you're walking this lie.
Yeah.
And you're also not fulfilling purpose that in this passion that you had for yourself. And this bill comes in and gives you 5 words.
Yeah.
5 words that would change the trajectory of your life. Now take us on this path now and this adventure, this journey after you heard those 5 words.
Well, those words, I describe it as it was like an aha moment that flipped a switch in my brain that had been waiting to be flipped. And you know, we talk about change with people a lot, and I think I was in that pre-contemplative state, thinking about changing for so long. But it was that moment that the switch flipped, and it was like I was ready for change in an instant. And so all these years of thinking about it and going back and forth, and maybe one day I'd do something healthy and then I'd go back and forth. It was like that point of like the wavering was done. And I was actually finally ready to tackle this no matter what it was going to take. And I call it my Independence Day. So I always say like it was, 4th of July, but my Independence Day is July 5th. And so I always celebrate that as my Independence Day, because for me, those words, that switch flipping, it broke a chain. It broke a chain that actually set me free in that moment. I was so tied in bondage to those behaviors, and what he said to me in that moment actually broke that chain for me. And for me, it was, I wanted to compete. Personally, I needed something that was a big goal, that was a big enough driver and motivator that I had
Very
to work
challenging.
toward, that I had to commit to, and that I was going to have to stay committed to. So that's how I had to work personally for me. That is what I needed to propel me to push forward. A lot, if there was a vague goal, if there was no end, if there was no ending, if there was nothing I was working for, I don't know if it would have been powerful enough for me to push through that barrier that was holding me back. So that's not going to be for everybody. Everybody's not going to be, I'm going to do fitness competitions. For me, because that was such a dream that was in my heart, it was like, this is what I'm going to be working towards. I found a show that day. Literally that day changed everything. I started researching. I hired one of the trainers at the gym to help to hold me accountable and to take me through workouts so that I would have someone holding me accountable there. I started obsessing over bodybuilding.com because that was like the hub of competitors and information. And I just started devouring as much as I could, trying to learn what does this mean? What does this look like? That was the first day, like that night I went home, and it was the first time I had ever measured food or tracked actually what was in my dinner and measured a portion. I'd never done that before. And I remember making this salad that had like I think it was like beans, and I had fish, but I actually weighed stuff, and I'd never done that before. And it was like, this is so interesting. Like, oh wow, this is actually how many calories are in this.
And you're training clients.
I was training clients, and I apologize if I ever trained you.
We don't know
that.
what we don't know.
I love you guys. I knew how to take you through workouts, but I didn't know how to teach you the nutrition pieces. So that was really the beginning of it, and that was where things started for me. And it was an incredible journey from there. It was 18 weeks later that I had lost the 50 pounds. Now there was a lot of challenges, and then from that place, I always talk about it's 20 years later. There's things that we'll talk about more on other episodes of. I had to also dig into my trauma pieces and do a lot of the trauma work. So the sustainability part of why I'm sitting here 20 years later and have kept that weight off is because I also went in and had to do the trauma work. And it's something that we'll talk a lot more about here on the show. But that was the moment for me that changed everything. It's what led me to the weight loss, which is what led me to the competitions, which is what led me to becoming one of those girls in Oxygen magazine and being able to be one of the ones that was inspiring all of the other young women. It's what led me to you. It's what allowed me to be a part of Hitch Fit, to Soul Fit retreats, and to everything that we're going into in the future. So that's why I'm so incredibly grateful for that time and that moment. But I wanted to share a little bit just about how that became like that moment and leading into it, because I think it's so important for people to understand that it didn't happen overnight, and it's okay. It is okay if you're in that pre-contemplative state. You may just need that moment. It could be that one thing that someone says. Maybe it's something that I said here today that will flip that switch for somebody else. And that's why I didn't used to be that vulnerable with the story. And now I am, because I understand that there may be somebody that is just listening and needs to hear that. What are you waiting for that switch to flip in them, so that they can start walking into that new phase of freedom that is possible and it is there for them.
Well, I'm first off thankful for Bill. I'm thankful
Yes.
for the Lord. I'm thankful for
thank
Bill
you.
for those 5 words.
Yes.
For this amazing woman. Thank you for sharing your story that deep. There's a lot more to it. As we finish this up, what are a few takes that you could give? There's a lot of people watching right now that are struggling in the space that you once were in this vicious roller coaster, in this cycle of losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. What are a few things that you could tell those people in actionable steps that could help them?
Well, I think one takeaway is, like, I understand that this is stuff that has a lot of shame wrapped around it. I think it's like to be able to take a look at that and let go of the shame pieces and actually just be like, look at it for what it is, the root causes of things. There was root causes of my behaviors that I didn't understand. Now I understand them much more fully, but just understanding there doesn't have to be shame about this, because it is something, when it comes to weight loss journeys, it's something that so many people struggle deeply with, that there are so many hidden things and hidden behaviors and hidden hurts and traumas that food is being used to fill. So if we could just, number one takeaway is, if we could just remove some of the shame and get to a place of honesty about what the real struggle is. And then number two is that there's hope. There is great, great hope. I hope that my story encourages, but there's so many other stories, whether yours is similar to mine or completely different. Those pieces of shame, and then but of understanding you can step away from the shame, and that there's hope, and that change is possible. I think those would be two of the huge takeaways that I would hope that people would receive from listening to this.
And one more takeaway that I'll do, and she mentioned this very early on, but imagine what life would be like if we didn't worry about the judgment of others constantly and only focused on the judgment of him. And it's such a powerful, it's really difficult to do, But when we start looking at the people, the places, the things in our lives and what we're surrounding ourselves with and the choices that we're making there, like that becomes easier to deal with, where you're like, I just want to wake up healthy.
Yeah.
I want to wake up strong for my family, if I'm a leader at work, or if I'm volunteering and I want to be that best person. I would just really look into that and create a circle that has good people and start making better choices with your nutrition and your working out. And she did that one step at a time and one day at a time. And it comes as simple as that. Take one day at a time and think about the choices you're making with every choice.
Yeah. It's great.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Thank you for holding my story with me. Really just would love to hear your feedback. Reach out. We'd love to hear your story if you want to write to us. I'd love to hear if you're in that place of where I was before of struggling, please reach out and let us, we are here to hold a story. We're here to listen, to give whatever we can to help you work through that. But also just encourage you to please subscribe to the show. Please leave your comments, leave your likes, share this with a friend if you have someone that needs to hear this message. But thank you for joining us, and we hope we'll see you again on the next episode of A Few Things.